My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my ranking of Alexandre Aja's filmography from worst to best. And this video will have spoilers for all his movies, including the brand new Never Let Go, so there's your warning. But I find this guy to be a very underrated director. He's not consistent, but there are some real gems here. So let's begin by talking about his worst movie, and it's unfortunately Never Let Go. This is one of the biggest disappointments of the year for me. I was really hoping to love it, but I just found it to be so boring. This is a bland, lifeless movie, and I found it difficult to pay attention to it. I thought the acting was good, and it does have its moments. Like that scene where the mom is about to kill the dog was definitely an effective scene. And then how that scene plays out with the one son cutting her rope, and then the mom, you know, I was just like, holy shit, they went there. The mom actually died, and it's the kid's fault. How does he deal with that? And I just don't think the movie followed up on that in any effective manner. Like, yes, the mom is no longer in the rest of the movie, but you don't really get that emotional weight. But then there's also the big question of, was the mom lying or wasn't she? And that scene where the hiker comes to the house and he's like, hey, I'm here to help. And then the kid shoots him. I was just like, okay, so this movie's going in the direction of the mom was lying. And I'm like, okay, this could be very interesting. Let's see what the movie does. But then they take the hiker's food, and apparently the hiker wasn't real, so they ate made up evil food? Sorry, what? But then the one kid gets taken over, and the house burns down, and then the scene with the snake of like the body coming out of the skin was very cool. But then it turns out the mom was kind of lying because they get rescued and they get taken to a town. So I'm like, okay, wait. So the mom was lying about that, but not about the evil. And it's just unsatisfying. It doesn't know which direction to go in. And I really didn't like it at all. I'm going to forget about this movie in a week, and that's a shame. But yeah. Also, it's like nothing new. You know, like it has the feel of A Quiet Place and Arcadian and what's the other one? It feels like a post-apocalypse monster movie, and then there's also the element of frailty and 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I just feel like all those movies I mentioned did this kind of movie better. So yeah, terrible. The second worst movie of his is very surprising to me, and it's The Hills Have Eyes. I thought I was going to love this movie, and I was so let down. Now, I should say that I don't like the original movie, so the fact that the first two acts were shot for shot in moments did really bother me. Like, I'm not a fan of remakes that try to recreate the original movies. I think you should take the premise and make it feel new and different. So the first two acts of this movie just felt so familiar, and I found it to be very boring. But the last act does deliver on some carnage. It does have its effective moments. It does have its tense moments. So I really enjoyed where this movie went. I just wish the build-up was better. The sixth best movie of his is Horns. And this movie is so weird, and that's what I kind of like about it. Like, when this movie is a dark comedy, it really works for me. There are some great funny moments, but when this movie is a mystery or when it's a horror movie, that's when it kind of sucks. I couldn't care less about the mystery, and this is a movie that gets worse as it progresses. I was loving it to begin with, and by the end, I was left, it's kind of mediocre. Daniel Radcliffe is good though. His fifth best movie is Meals, and I do think this movie is too long. There is some terrible expositional dialogue, and it can be boring, but there's such a great premise here, and I love how nobody believes this character. No one believes him when he tells them that the meals are evil. And that's effective on a psychological level, but even the things that these meal demons do, like ripping that girl's jaw open, it is effective stuff. And it's just a great, unique idea, and I do love the note this movie ends on, with Kiefer Sutherland entering this meal dimension. It is a very haunting note. So it's flawed, it's not great, but there's definitely plenty to like here. His fourth best movie is High Tension. Or I think the movie's also called Switchblade Romance. And this movie uses the song Newborn by Muse so incredibly well, and I was listening to that song on repeat for a week after I watched this movie. And 90% of this movie is great. It is thrilling. It is tense. But then we get the dumbest twist ever, and it's just a stain on this movie. Like, it's just so obviously stupid, and it's like, why would you ruin so much of what I loved about this movie? It doesn't make any bit of sense, and it just diminishes what could have been a fantastic movie, but it's still good. His third best movie is Oxygen, and I do think this movie is well made. I love the look of it. The production design is great. I love this futuristic technology. And there are some big ideas on display about memories and identity. And I do like lots of the twists and turns. Oh shit, I didn't write down the actress's name, but I think it's Melanie Laurent who gives a great performance. So I do really love so much of this movie, but the countdown of Oxygen is just so unbelievable, and it takes me out of the movie time and time again. Like, there'll be 10 minutes that pass, and it goes from 33% to 32%. But then 10 more minutes pass, and it goes from 32% to 16%. It's just not consistent at all. And the ending just feels way too easy. So I really like this movie. It's just got a few issues. But the top two movies are movies I love and will rewatch so many times. So my second favorite is Crawl. Now, there is some very expositional and over-the-top dialogue that doesn't work for me, but everything else I love. First of all, I love the rainy, stormy atmosphere of this movie. It kind of reminds me of Last of Us 2, which, if you know me, is my favorite story of all time, but yes, I love the feel of this movie. I love how unique of a premise it is. Like, we don't get many movies about people facing off against crocodiles. And the movie does manage to be tense and thrilling throughout. You're just wondering, how are they going to get out of this? And this movie can be brutal when needed. That shot of the dad's leg is just awful, and like, they go through a lot. And it's just a very entertaining movie that escalates ever so perfectly. Like, it starts off with two characters in a crawl space with alligators, and the water is getting higher, so that makes it more dangerous, but now she can swim around, so that makes it more interesting. They make their way to the house where it's starting to flood, and it's just a movie that it's honestly a perfect example of escalation in a movie, and I just think it's a really fun movie, and I love it. And apparently they're making a sequel in New York City, which I can't wait for. That is going to be great. So, yes. But my favorite is Piranha 3D. This movie just completely works for me. Some people might complain about the atrocious CGI, and that's part of this movie's charm. It is campy and fully embraces it. Some people might complain about the stupidity, and that is the best part of this movie. Like, it's just a movie that knows exactly what it is, what the audience wants, and fully delivers. Like, this movie is fucking gnarly. There is so much blood and guts, and it's just awesome. So it manages to be tense and brutal, but it also goes past that point where the blood kind of becomes comedic, and it's just so over the top in the best way possible. It reminds me of one of my favorite movies, Brain Dead by Peter Jackson, and it just fully works. That scene of like the guy on the motorboat just going over everybody is great, but then you get a scene where the girl's head gets stuck in the blade and pulls her scalp off, and then you got the scene where they're carrying somebody out of the water and their body just falls apart, or the scene where the director is taken out of the water and he looks down and he sees he's just born now. Like, oh, so many great moments. I love it. I really do. I also love how there's a point in the movie where the two kids aren't really a part of the plot, so somehow they just get stuck on this island. It's so stupid. I love it. I really do. I like the performances, Elizabeth Shue, Christopher Lloyd, Ving Rhames, but Jerry O'Connell is so fantastic, and I really like Stephen R. McQueen and Jessica Salzo. I thought they brought some charm, some likability to this movie, and I was actually invested in their romance. And yeah, like, this movie is just a total blast. It is nuts, it goes all out, but it is such a fun, entertaining movie. It's tense and thrilling and brutal and bloody and fucked up and disturbing. It's also hilarious, and it's just great. This might be a hard take, but it's my favorite underwater creature movie, even surpassing Jaws. So make of that as you will, but it is Alexandre Aja's Mona Lisa. It is his magnum opus, and I love it. But Alexandre Aja movies, have you seen them? What's your ranking? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin,